hello to the Scream Extractor.
Hello.
So the man who came up with the idea of the UFC was a man named Davie. Growing up, his favorite TV show was a show called Greatest Fights of the Century, in which aired old boxing matches. The Greatest Fights of the Century video you see playing in the background is an episode of Joe Louis versus Rocky Marciano, in which was a great fight. Rocky Marciano knocked Joe Louis literally out the ring, as you can see. Davie actually went to high school with Donald Trump in New York. They were roommates for a semester at a private boarding school called the New York Military Academy in the early 1960s.
Guy's going to be president of the United States someday. Or what did you see in Donald Trump at that age?
Well, you know, it was very interesting. Donald had been at the school for a couple of years. He actually entered, I believe, in 8th grade. I came in as a junior, and we spent 2 years. I only spent 2 years at the school. Trump was 16. I was 15. What I'll tell you about Don Trump was he was the BMOC right on campus at that time. He was the big man on campus. Everybody knew that there was something special about Don. He took himself very seriously. I remember in particular how impressed he was with the publicity that Richard Burton and Liz Taylor had gotten on the movie Cleopatra. They were the first super media stars. They were the Kardashians of the 60s. And I remember Don always saying to me, you know, if you really understand how to talk to the press, well, you can really make a big thing in this world. I think that Don Trump, even then, was running for office. I think he had an ability to influence people. I think he had an ability to lead. The big story that year was he was supposed to be a lieutenant in Battery E, where we were. He had been at the school since the 8th grade, and they only made him a supply sergeant. By the way, I was a private. The next year, he did make captain. He was and I remember there was a lot of talk about maybe they had passed him over for lieutenant there as a junior. So Don was a guy, I think, where you have to realize always wanted to succeed, and he didn't take failure lightly. What I do also remember was when we had the military inspection from the U.S. government, Don was upset that I had a conversation with the colonel that sounded like maybe I was just talking to a kid on the block. He kind of chewed me out afterwards. He said, you know, that wasn't very military. I never forgot that.
Davie then enlisted in the Marines and served in Vietnam for 11 months and had seen potential in martial arts on an R&R recovery and recreation trip to Bangkok in Thailand, where he heard of a story about two opponents who were extremely unmatched. One, a small Muay Thai fighter, and the other, a hulking Indian wrestler. In the end, it ended with the smaller man winning. He wasn't sure if the story was true, but he knew it had the start of a good idea in it. On a side note, you know what else came out of Thailand? Red Bull. It was first called Krating Dang by its creator Chaleo Uvidya. It was a syrupy drink that was very popular in Thailand until the 1980s when Dietrich Mateschitz tried it, liked it, then formed a partnership with Chaleo, transforming the drink into what is now Red Bull. I'll put the video in the description. Now back to the podcast. Davie came back to the United States and worked as a used car salesman in the mid-1970s. He worked at Toyak Motors in San Diego and appeared in a series of television commercials. He spent months in California at the Torrance Public Library going through the history of martial arts and prize fighting, collecting data for his pitch folder. Also, this was before the internet became an option to use. He was most interested in putting fighters from different martial arts backgrounds against each other to see who had the most effective form of self-defense. Reviewing fight exhibition matches between guys like Gene LaBelle, a black belt in judo, and boxer Milo Savage. Also reviewing boxer Muhammad Ali, when in 1976 he fought a wrestler Antonio Inoki at the Poem Budokan Arena in Tokyo. Honestly, it seemed like a parody to me. The highlights were hilarious. Ali has boxing gloves on, Inoki's bare knuckle. Inoki's falling on the floor, kicking up at Ali. Ali's trying to jump on him, trying to stomp him out. Just ridiculousness. Inoki was forbidden from using wrestling takedowns, which I don't think is fair, but Inoki still went 15 rounds with Ali, which is impressive and hilarious at the same time. In one of Art Davie's commercials, he wore a Kevlar vest while someone shot him in the chest with a handgun. And in another, he was suspended by a harness below a helicopter while it flew across San Diego. I tried to find video footage and other information of this on the internet, but I couldn't find anything to back this information other than what I read from the book. Rorion Gracie arrived in the United States in 1978 at 26 years old. His goal was to extend his family's jiu-jitsu business to America. He worked as a house cleaner and an extra on TV shows like Heart to Heart and Fantasy Island. His reputation landed him a job as a stunt coordinator for the movie Lethal Weapon. He's the guy you see slapping the woman in the clip in the scene of the movie Lethal Weapon, the guy with the mustache that picks up the hammer. Rorion then began to lease his own gym in Torrance, California, and started teaching jiu-jitsu full-time. He had his own video series called Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in Action. Art Davie began taking classes at Rorion's gym, then helped organize a 5-volume VHS tape series called Basics of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. In 1992, Art Davie quit his job and began making trips to Torrance Public Library to gain more information on state athletic commission regulations and to gain information on the broadcasting industry for his new television show, what would eventually be the UFC. He called executives at HBO and Showtime, but they turned him down. He faxed over business plans to ESPN and Prime Ticket, but neither responded with them to follow up. While he was researching, Art Davie came across a company in New York called Semaphore Entertainment Group, SEG for short, that built their business broadcasting pay-per-view concerts of another company's musical acts. That other company was Bertelmann's Music Group. SEG was looking to expand its business. In March 1992, Art Davie called Campbell McLauren, the vice president of original programming of Semaphore Entertainment Group. Campbell McLauren liked Art Davie's pitch, and he was sure it wouldn't be boring. McLauren asked Davie to send him a formal business plan to go over with his colleagues and promised to set up a in-person meeting in New York in a few weeks. Art Davie sent his pitch documents along with copies of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in Action videos. 1 month later, in April 1992, the year I was born, Art Davie met McLauren and president of SEG, Bob Meyrowitz. Meyrowitz was a longtime boxing fan and liked the idea of producing his own fighting TV series in some form. Meyrowitz told Art Davie he would have Semaphore Entertainment Group's lawyers start negotiating terms of a deal with Art Davie's lawyers, but Art Davie didn't have any lawyers, so he hired a local lawyer named Mark Field, an accountant in Denver, Colorado, to handle Davie's company accounts. Also, in the beginning, they didn't come up with the name Ultimate Fighting Championship yet, so he got a Colorado LLC set up as War of the Worlds Promotions. Art Davie and SEG settled on an 8-man tournament structure. The tournament winner would fight 3 times in one night and would earn a $50,000 prize. SEG's art director, Jason Cushion, made the design for an octagonal cage. The shape was inspired by a 1980s Chuck Norris movie called The Octagon. SEG and Art Davie reached an agreement that SEG would cover the marketing and production costs, and Art Davie and Rorion Gracie will be responsible for finding the fighters and covering their prize money.